Black Sheep Shipping presents Bottlenose. Content warnings can be found in the description.
I used to wake up every morning and hit my head on this one pipe. I was, a big guy, trying to cram myself into a tiny soup can for months at a time. Waking up in that tiny cot was always the worst part. The Proteus was a slapdash design, essentially a mix of several C-Lab 3 and 4 pods, spot welded together. It was a miracle the thing maintained atmosphere at all. There were 6 of us down there, 4 scientists and 2 technicians, under the sunny Florida Keys for months at a time. I wasn't like the others. They were all slender scholars, even the other tech, all college educated. Probably would have said that I've dodged a draft if it ever applied to them. Meanwhile, I had jumped on the Navy early to stay out of Charlie's hair. I remember the way they looked at me when I spooked them in the gangways, all tattoos and beard and grizzle, awkwardly shimming past them with my guts sucked in. I was one of only 3 guys, and one of them was a song and dance man. A total outsider, locked in this cloistered world with them. Dr. Delphine studied tonic immobility in sharks. Flip him, and they're hypnotized, helpless. Dr. Stevenson had something to do with jellyfish, and Dr. Kelsey was looking at the effects of what she called microplastics, always claiming the ocean would be full of it someday, but none of them were a celebrity like Dr. Cameron Blake. The marine biology community was a tight-knit family, but Dr. Blake was like their rock star. He was lean and toned, hair like David Bowie, and even painted nails. He disarmed them. He was smart, sensitive, and more charming than you'd expect for such an egghead. He'd lean over them checking out samples under a microscope, squeeze into his dry suit in eye shot. Sorry, let me just reach behind you and grab my coffee. Always signing his notes and messages on the operations calendar with that stupid little winky face. But I knew him for who he really was, what he really was, all because of Mary, his ex-girlfriend. She was everything to me, even if I was scared to express it. She was the whole reason I got the job in the first place. Like I said, the marine biology community is small. We had been seeing each other for a few months when she told me about him. The one night, after too much wine, she told me everything. The sabotage, the manipulation, the drugs, the threats in her career, scars he gave her in places no one else could see. And there I was, trapped with him, watching him run the same playbook that started things with Mary. He knew that I knew. Of course, he never told me, but I could tell by the way he looked at me. Word got around fast. Naturally, he had made Mary out to be a villain. She couldn't find work, what little there was to be had. Sometimes he'd be chatting one of them up, and he'd spot me over their shoulder. The sideways glance he'd give me, it was almost like a wink. The predatory glint of something that stalked, used, took, then threw away. He knew I saw him for what he was, and it thrilled him. It thrilled him to get away with it right there, hiding his position of power under his smile. And what a position of power it was. Dr. Blake's research, necessitated its own pod. Pod 6. I'd later learn it was the real reason Proteus was ever built in the first place. He and I were the only ones allowed in. He had some kind of hush-hush government contract. I suppose, being Navy, they figured I knew how to keep my mouth shut. He wouldn't directly discuss what it was he was doing with the others. Whatever it was, it had something to do with bottlenose dolphins. Apparently Proteus's location was chosen due to its proximity to a popular hunting ground for them. We'd see them swirl around in the portholes, recognizing him. It only made him more of a heartthrob, bringing these friendly little creatures around the lab. Sometimes he'd even have one stick its head through the moon pool, let the others feed it. The one day he came to me with a problem. I think it was the first time he ever directly addressed me, just the two of us. Said there was an issue with Pod 6's holding anchors. Tidal forces caused one of them to get loose somehow. I didn't know how that was possible. Those things were rated for hurricanes, but I had to look. I told him I'd check it out while he was pulling some extravehicular research. Sure enough, one of the bolts had been forced up. Shouldn't have been enough to cause a perceptible difference in the way the pod sat on its own, but somehow he knew. No way any tidal forces caused it. It was like someone tried to wrench the thing out. Sabotage, plain and simple. I was about to get to work when I felt something watching me. You don't have much peripheral vision in a commercial diving helmet, so I had to completely turn around to see it. One of those damn dolphins, not making any noise or playfully circling me like I'd seen them do before. No, this one was different. It just hovered there, tail straight down, eyes reflecting in the light of my headlamp, looking straight ahead. I recognized this one. Where humans had fingerprints, dolphins had their flukes. The tail fins. This one had 3 shallow notches close together on its left. He was a favorite of Dr. Blake's pod, his own personal flipper. But I never saw him act like this before. Starting my work was enough to scare him off, but the delay might have cost me. It was too late when I saw them frantically gesturing in the observation dome. Dr. Blake, he was outside of the habitat, floating limp. Mouthpiece gently trailing him like a severed umbilical cord. They later told me by the time I was able to rush him inside, he was already gone. Unconsciousness from hypoxia, then full-on drowning. Higher-ups visited us for an investigation. In the end, it was determined that the hydrostatic forces of my impact hammer caused his closed-circuit rebreather to fail. I told him to stay inside one of the other pods. I know I did. Even barring that, a pro like Dr. Blake should have noticed something was up. If they didn't hate me before, they did then. They blamed me. I could feel it. I wasn't held legally liable, but I was heavily reprimanded. Said that I should have checked the worksite more thoroughly before beginning. Worse, everyone else was given the option to pull out. Seemed like they were all ready to, but Dr. Kelsey argued that Cam would have wanted them to continue in their pursuits. He was always so supportive. After the lengthy implementation of new safety procedures and an appropriate mourning period, the work continued. I kept my job. I guess underwater welders weren't so easy to come by. It was quieter now. Sullen. Nobody talked to me if they could help it. We'd still occasionally see the pod of dolphins Dr. Blake worked with swing by, wondering where their daily allotment of free food had gone. They might have left forever, if it wasn't for the fact that, in all his infinite wisdom, Dr. Blake named a successor should he somehow become unable to continue his work. Mary. No one could believe it. Dr. Blake had decried her work and her professionalism. Now, here he was, recommending her fresh out of grad school to carry on the most important research of his career. It was the ultimate gift I could have never given her. The chance to excel. I was so happy to see her there. I remember the morning she arrived. I didn't hit my head on that same goddamn pipe because I was too excited to sleep at all the previous night. But whatever we had on the surface, in the close confines of the Proteus, it was all strict professionalism. I understood, but it was torture to be in these close confines with her while somehow keeping her at arm's length, watching her face light up every day from the brilliance of what he left behind for her. I allowed myself to stew in rage like a child, imagining her finding those winky faces in his notes, drawn just for her. What else did he leave behind for his successor to read? Apparently, Dr. Blake's notes weren't easy to follow. She couldn't discuss them, but she told me she struggled to make heads or tails of any of it, to live up to his expectations, as if he deserved anything from her. The dolphins seemed to love her. Now, they were coming almost every day, especially that one with the 3 short notches on the left fluke. It followed her
Black
and
Sheep
dives,
Shipping
literally
presents
eating out of her hand
Bottlenose.
in the moon pool.
Content warnings
One
can be
day,
found in the
She
description.
told me about some
This
minor
episode
leak
was
in
written
Pod 6.
and directed by Alex
Told me
Valentino
to take a look,
and edited by
but it was
D.V.
a pleasant
Clarke.
surprise.
The technician
There
was
was no
played by
leak.
Ed Khoo.
She said she wanted
This
to show me
episode was
something.
announced by
It
Alexander
looked like a
Hanley,
big,
with
chunky
musical theme
calculator,
by Onlooker
or
Air,
maybe some kind
and
of
cover art
handheld
by
computer.
OddOblivion. This
A
episode
tiny
of
slit
Black
of
Sheep
a
Shipping
screen
is
that could
licensed
support
under a
one
Creative
line of
Commons
tiny text at a
Attribution
time,
Non-Commercial Share
and
Alike
2 sets of
4.0
cables dangling from
International
it,
License.
each ending
Thanks
in
for
a
listening.
nasty-looking piece of equipment. Chunky nodes, like something you'd imagine hanging from the ceiling of a dentist's office in a nightmare. She told me she finally understood what he was trying to do. She was close to unpacking it. A lot of what happened in the confines of the Proteus was above my pay grade, but I have to admit, I had a hard time believing what she told me. How this device was supposed to work, what exactly Dr. Blake hoped to accomplish. Then we heard him, that same damn Bottlenose, chirping excitedly outside, looking at us through the portholes. She followed him, giddy, striding down the narrow gangways of Pod 6. It was too late for us to realize that we had broken protocol when the real emergency came. One of the pressure pumps, it was just gone, burst, and we didn't have enough full tanks for both of us. I pleaded with her to take it, almost had to force the rebreather into her mouth. I tried to curb the rate pressure we lost the best I could, but we were losing the pod. There was only so much I could do from the inside. I remember her grabbing me, hauling me under just as the water started to hit the ceiling. When I came to, I felt like shit. I was freezing, even though Mary had wrapped me in a space blanket. My vision was blurry, and the left side of my body was on fire. I could hardly move my limbs at all. Mary greeted me in tears. I couldn't believe what she told me, words spilling out and toppling over each other like a 10-car pileup. All the other pods were lost. Probably the rest of the crew, too. She saw them. Bloated corpses frozen in terror. Other pods crumpled from the pressure differential. Dr. Delphine was missing entirely. If it wasn't for the airlocks of Pod 1 being down, it would have been lost too. We were all that was left. I remember asking if she tried reaching the surface. She said the main umbilical had been severed from the life support buoy. The rescue lines were all undone, scattered to the currents. We had no communication with the surface, and no way out fast enough without facing decompression sickness, which is too nice of a way to describe bubbles forming in your brain, heart, lungs, and blood. With the amount of oxygen we had on hand, we'd pop like balloons trying to make it to the surface in time. Someone had to reattach the main umbilical. I was the only one on Proteus who could do it, even before, but the hypoxia had dragged me halfway to the grave. It took everything I had to stay awake. Mary, she told me she could do it. I just had to tell her what to look for. I didn't want her to go, but there was no other choice. I gave her as clear instructions as I could, still woozy, still fighting to stay conscious. I remember thinking she was so strong in that moment. I told her I'd be with her the whole way, watching through the observation dome. I held her hand as she sank into the moon pool, anxious as to how clear my instructions had been. But she was a smart woman. She could have done it with or without me. I watched her, sunlight dancing through the surface 20 yards away. Before long, my view was darkened by a shadow passing overhead, that same dolphin with 3 short notches on the left fluke. At first, she was happy to see it, but something was off. It moved like it had the day of the accident, not curiously circling, just floating in place, tail straight down. Then it headed over to her, nuzzling, not understanding what it was interrupting. She tried to gently push him away, but he was insistent. I could almost hear her gasps of panic through her rebreather, the water, and all the layers of thick glass between us. As it bit her, my heart dropped. Just a curious little nibble at first. She darted her hand away, stabilizing herself on the umbilical, starting to circle away from him. But he went after her again. Another bite, this time on the other wrist in passing. He swam out then circled back, faster this time, wrenching her along. I thought he'd pull her arm out of its socket, away from the umbilical, back where I could see her. She tried to get away, swim back down to the moon pool, but he grabbed one of her flippers, dragging her back above me. He rammed into her side, over and over again, knocking loose her tank, ripping her mouthpiece out. This wasn't a wild animal. It was precise, calculated. Through failing vision and sobs, I watched helpless as it ripped her off her tank, letting it gently sink until it landed above me, in the center of the observation dome. She swam towards me, desperately clawing for breaths, completely free now. And that fucking thing, it let her. It was toying with her, having fun, letting her take in greedy breaths from the drifting mouthpiece before dragging her back up violently, ripping something off every time. Thin red ribbons of blood began to bloom from her as she struggled. I watched her tears fill her goggles, raging helplessly in my broken body. All I could do was slam on the observation dome glass with my good arm, in a desperate attempt to scare it away. It didn't work. The bottlenose gently twirled around her as she desperately flailed back down to the tank each time, showing himself off. Then, she managed to grab a hold of the tank for longer, angering herself as her bleeding legs flailed. This time he didn't drag her. He nudged at her weight belt and I could only watch, face to face with the light of my life. I don't know if she drowned or bled out first. It was hard to see. Eventually it became too much to bear. I turned away from the dome, and there he was, eyeing me. Not like a curious animal, no. I had seen that look before. The gleeful malice, staring at me from a tiny porthole. I made out another distinguishing feature, a tiny scar on the side of its head, like a small crater. Then, as if to erase any doubt in my mind, it came closer to the window. I realized it was holding something in its mouth. The bloody stump of one of her fingers, blooming blood in the water like the smoke of a cigarette. Carefully, meticulously, it got the side of its mouth close enough to drag the finger across the glass. The final image was shaky, but clear. That same fucking winking smiley face. It was him. He could only see me with one eye at a time now, but it was the same look. The light from the Proteus lighting up his retina. What are you gonna do about it? I win. And he wanted me to know. Smiling that toothy grin, still chewing on Mary's finger in the corner of his snout. The bottlenose, Dr. Blake. He swam in lazy loops around the pod, cackling in victory. I understood now. His research. What he had done. Shielding my eyes from the dome above, I found the device Mary showed me. 2 nodes, small little nubs no bigger than spark plugs, still dangling there. She had brought it here, deemed it worthy of saving. Faint light still blinked in its display. I had to believe it was made to survive the water. I've always been good at figuring out machines. Eventually, Dr. Blake left, satisfied with his conquest. I saw him swim towards the umbilical, blocking the sun, checking things out, satisfied that I was going to die, and then I was alone again. But the dolphins weren't the only creatures around the Proteus. Pod 4 was Dr. Delphine's pod. She had her own test subject. A bull shark, a massive 15-footer, kept in a state of perpetual tonic immobility, flipped on its back. Dr. Delphine was trying to see how long certain organisms could survive such a state. The pod was nothing but a crumpled husk now. It was my only chance. I found a diving knife and sliced deep into my left arm, lengthwise. I barely felt it. Rage was all that drove me now, and I needed to produce blood. More blood than Mary. I hauled myself to the edge of the moon pool and waited, arm dangling in the freezing water, broadcasting my position. My vision got worse. I could feel the fight draining my body, the last vestiges of consciousness fleeting. All that kept me alive was a thin kernel of hate, the sight of those 3 small notches on his left fluke, lazily swimming away. Years seemed to pass as I bled. When I finally saw it, I wasn't sure it was real. It passed by me first, not able to precisely locate the smell. I felt its smooth skin as it glided past me, knowing those scales would shred my skin to pieces if I went against the grain. In a split second, it got a clue. It damn near snapped itself in half in anticipation, eager to get its mouth around the source of the blood. Now was my chance. I took one of the little spark plugs and held the button, just like how Mary showed me. The small ring of bladed teeth at the end of it began to whir. I aimed for the frontal cortex by way of my temple, feeling the device make mincemeat of my skull. The vision in my left eye went out, shielding me from the side of my arm being swallowed. It looked like a foreign language now, a fuzzy eye test I could only guess at the context for, but I made out the letters on the thin display when I pressed enter. Ready. I did my best to get what fingers still worked to hook themselves through the shark's gills from inside its mouth, holding it in place. Sharks' brains are strangely shaped. They look like uteruses, with a forebrain and a hindbrain. I went for the forebrain, jamming the other spark plug straight down on the top of its head. I struck gold. Even with the thing thrashing around my arm, I dug deep into the shark's skull, still dimly aware of the other end of the device sticking out of my own head. The last sensation of my God-given body was the curious feeling of thousands of tiny cables suddenly expanding inside of my head, like the roots of a plant growing in an instant, using my gray matter as a fertile soil. Funny thing, the brain. It has no pain receptors. It didn't hurt, as what remained of my vision faded. The first thing I remember was the feeling of drowning. Water filling my mouth, perfusing my body, seeming to make me heavier. I pushed outward to scream, but there were no lungs to push with. I could feel a warm chunk of something pass through my new mouth, the sensation of it against my cold-blooded body. Panic set in as I twitched from the shock, flinging myself forwards. Something ripped out of me as I did, snapping off and trailing away in my wake. The sensation didn't go away, water rushing into my mouth and past my... What was it? As I choked in the sea, I tried to touch my face. That's when I realized my limbs were gone. I couldn't reach. I couldn't feel. Only a reflex twitch, swinging my spine to the side and sending myself speeding forwards again. That was all I was now, a head on a spine, floating through the abyss. But I had something, needed something. I could smell something, more than smell. My vision was only barely better than before, stretched across two distant eyes, but I could smell everything and more. There was an ambient hum in the water, and it tasted like copper. What was that? It was delicious. I soon became aware of how hungry I was, like going to sleep with what's it called? Late day food. I was starving. That copper smell called to me. I had no choice but to chase it. It led me to a morsel. I somehow knew I should be able to feel this thing as well as smell it, but it was dead already. My own arm, barely hanging on by a thread. I gobbled it up, dragged my useless body down from the upper water. I was crunchy, bony, didn't taste good. This made me angry. I swam. I was angry before. What was I angry at? Yes, that dolphin, with 3 short notches on his left fluke. Very far away. I could feel it swimming. There were lots of smaller flickers in the water, but I could feel this one. Bigger. Up and down like a dolphin's tail. Probably searching for its own prey. 3 short notches. That was what I was after. I got to grips with my new body's movement, even the slightest wiggle sending me so far. It took a little bit, but I figured out how to go up. Another coppery meat bundle, trying to float up, but bound by some rock, object, seaweed, thing. More meat. Dead meat. But no more. I was angry now. I remember why I was angry. I was angry at meat. One meat. The dolphin. Yes. 3 short notches. I needed to find meat. The thing. It was at the edge of my sensing, but I could feel it. Faintly. Sparks that I couldn't see, but I could feel. What was I? Meat. Yes. Hungry. Angry. 3 short notches. On the left. That meat I needed. Needed kill. Not eating kill. Hate kill. Hate kill meat. 3 short notches. Left. Forward. I swam forward. The sparks told me where to go. Meat. 3 short notches. Meat. Swim. Go to the meat. Hungry. 3 short notches.
This episode was written and directed by Alex Valentino and edited by D.V. Clarke. The technician was played by Ed Khoo. This episode was announced by Alexander Hanley, with musical theme by Onlooker Air, and cover art by OddOblivion. This episode of Black Sheep Shipping is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 4.0 international license. Thanks for listening.